Play a video. Lazy.
All right. If you have not done so already, if you could just please place your stuff on mute. Good afternoon and welcome to RVA Rapids Transit Talk, where we have a monthly webinar series where it's our goal to inform you with key issues affecting public transportation in the Richmond region. I'm so excited to have you here today. My name is Faith Walker. I'm the Executive Director for RVA Rapid Transit. And as many of you know, RVA Rapid Transit is a nonprofit dedicated to advocating for frequent and far-reaching public transportation in the Richmond region. And we focus on three things. We want to see more buses go more places, people to have dignified places to wait when they're waiting on the bus. And then last but not least, we want to elevate riders' voices in decision-making and planning. And so today, before we get started, I also wanted to send a huge thank you to our community sponsors. Without the support of these organizations, we wouldn't be able to do the work that we do. So I wanted to say thank you to Bon Secours, the Energy Foundation, the Community Foundation for their continued support for us, the Virginia Department of Health, and you for supporting this transit talk today. So before we begin, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping. We are recording the event today as usual, and we'll have this up on our YouTube channel, and we're streaming live on YouTube as well. And so to keep down background noise, please keep yourself on mute during the event. We will have an opportunity for you to ask questions. We ask that you will ask your questions in our chat box. And so just drop them in the chat. Myself, Richard, or Shatira will make sure they get answered today. So, but before we get started, I wanted to turn it over to Richard Hankins, our Communications and Programs Manager, to give you some transit news for RVA. Take it away, Richard.
Cool. Hello, everybody. Yeah, my name is Richard. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm just going to catch you guys up on the news. First off, Grtc has started construction on their new transfer plaza. We're really excited about it. Should be open by spring 2023, and it's on 8th and Clay, if I remember correctly. And it looks much more impressive than the one they have now. So congratulations to Grtc and their partnership with the city in getting this done. One thing that we're really excited about, we started Mobility University. We've had 6 classes so far over 3 separate dates. You can see the first 2. Nelson Revely, one of our co-founders and board members, talked about the history of transit, and our campaign organizer, Shatira Lynch, talked about arrested mobility. The students are so engaged, and we're really enjoying everything they have to say. So just a big congratulations to everybody who's been involved in that. Forgive my self-promotion, but we were able to get some great transit news in Greater Washington, kind of a opinion piece that kind of summarized and updated the state of transit report we did from last winter. So we're really happy to get our voice out there, especially to a different constituency. Finally, some great news came out, I think, yesterday. Chesterfield is advancing service extended along Route 60. It's $1.9 million is coming from the Department of Rail and Public Transportation, and that includes a local match of about $400,000, and that would advance the 1A out Midlothian from Stonebridge Plaza, where the Kroger is, out Walmart Way. 12 new bus stops, 5 new miles of service, 2 buses an hour, and it'll be a year-long pilot that hopefully will start next fall. So that was my little blitz through the news. Thank you guys for listening. And now I think we're on to the writer's voice.
All right, well, good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shatira Lynch, campaign organizer. And I have 2 writer's voice comments that we will be highlighting today. And they are very informative and on point with what we're going to be discussing today. So I'm going to go ahead and press play so they can get started.
Christopher Nettles, I would like for them to have more buses or at least more drivers for the 4A, 4B, because us that live down there in Fulton, in that area, on the weekends, they shut down the buses at 4 o'clock. We stuck down there all day long, all night long. You know what I'm saying? People got to go to work, do other things.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Continue on to the second one, Shatira.
Yes, you can definitely do that. Thank you.
My name is Ronald White. My story is about, I work at Tyson, and there's a whole lot of people that don't have transportation. The bus line don't run up there. It should, because that's their livelihood. So the jobs are hiring, but it's off the bus line. Majority of the jobs here in Richmond, good jobs, are off the bus line. And I think it should have a bus line there. It runs just soap up and it stops.
Can you tell me what lines, where it should be, what roads and what streets on Tyson?
On Tyson, Glen Allen. It should run all the way up to Glen Allen. No buses run up to Glen Allen, and that's where the job's at. You know, some people got to pay, and they don't really have the money to get up there for interviews. So you got to pay somebody. Why not have them run up there? They run everywhere else. At least they trying to get a job. Put the bus line in where people can get to these jobs. Instead of riding around here in the city here, what about the people who go down there and file for jobs, but come to find out at temp service they off the bus line? So why not put these buses on the bus line where people are trying to get to their job? That's all I have to say.
So those were some very passionate and thought-provoking Riders' Voice comments from riders every day. And I hope that you enjoyed what you heard. And I'm going to turn it back over to Faith.
All right, thank you so much, Shatira. And so one of the things that Shatira is doing is collecting riders' comments, right? Meeting people, bus riders where they are. And since those bus riders were talking about how public transportation moves them to job opportunities, one of the things we want to do is learn what's the path forward. We just transitioned out of a pandemic, bus rider operator shortage. What is our path forward for extending service and renewing some service that got cut because of the pandemic? And so with that, I'm so excited to have two leaders from GRTC. The first leader we have is Mike Frontero. He is GRTC's new Director of Communications and Marketing. And Mike is a veteran in community engagement, marketing, and communications leader in the nonprofit field. He is developing and managing all components of marketing and advertisement and public media relations. He also has the important task of continuing to build GRTC's brand and further secure positive public publicity for the public transportation options in our region. And so also we have Tim Barham. He's the Chief of Transit Operations at GRTC. He manages the day-to-day operations of fixed route and paratransit services. He also monitors the day-to-day daily transportation requirements as they relate to staffing and training. He has close to 10 years in this role, but over 20 years of experience of public transportation here in the state of Virginia, as well as in Maryland. So I wanted to turn that over to them two right now to take it away. Go ahead, Mike and Tim.
Thank you, Faith. And I thank you for inviting us here to talk about this very important issue, which is affecting transit systems nationwide. We're looking at various initiatives to address the operator shortage. One area is television advertising campaigns, which involve a mix of TV and streaming ads. These ads have been helpful in helping recruiting new operators over the last year, but we need more. Another has been sign-on and retention bonuses. And to go into more details, I'm going to toss it over to Tim, who again is our Chief of Transit Operations. Tim, over to you.
Thanks, Mike. And as I set up and get the presentation going. Can you see the presentation okay?
Yes.
All right. And thanks, Faith, and everyone for the opportunity to join you all this afternoon for this very important session. Wanted to give kind of a perspective on the challenges that we're dealing with when it comes to operator staffing, and hopefully some things that we're putting in place to address it so that we can get to the levels we need to have enough operators to be able to expand the service along with doing what we need to do currently. So as you know, Grtc is the public transportation provider for the Richmond region, which includes service in Chesterfield County and also in Rico County. We provide service for the local fixed route service, as well as our BRT, which we call the Pulse, and paratransit service. We have to provide complimentary paratransit service, which is branded as CARE. And we'd also have Ride Finders that has a service throughout the region as well. Currently, we have 37 routes, which went into effect September the 11th. And our peak pullout, which is the number of vehicles we have maximum during the AM and PM pullout periods, is 88. So this graph here now, what you see is our staffing, which you see over the last 2.5, almost 3 years. You see 2020, which is in blue, shows the staffing levels that we had for operators, and these are full-time equivalents. So they include all of the full-time operators as well as part-time operators, which we consider half a person for purposes of the tracking. So you see what happened during the first year, 2020, and particularly during the pandemic, because as you know, the pandemic shutdown occurred in March of that year. But what you see is we pretty much maintain a decent level of operators throughout the early stages of the pandemic, mainly because it was still an uncertain period of time. People weren't really changing jobs that much. So we were still hiring and recruiting during that period. But you can see where the staffing level, it peaked up to around 290 full-time equivalent operators, roughly about 280 and another 19 or so part-time operators. So you see where we peaked up around that period in 2020, mid-2020. But in 2021, what happened, and you see it in orange here, is that the number of operators started dwindling, mainly because things started opening up and people were looking at different opportunities elsewhere. So we started to see a steady downward trend as far as our total number of operators go. And we've heard about that great resignation phenomena that has occurred nationwide. And unfortunately, we weren't immune to that as well. So what you saw, or what you see here going into late 2019, 2021 and into 2022, which is the gray line, you see the trend continuing downward. So that where we are now is roughly about, 250 or so full-time equivalent, roughly 240 full-time operators, and it steadily has declined to where we are now, which is about 227 full-time and 27 part-time operators. That number is as of today. I keep that number etched in my brain. I look at those numbers every day, coordinating with the training department. We have about 19 operators currently in various stages of training. So I'm constantly keeping track of those numbers to see where we are and what we're doing to get them back up. So this tells you our retention, or people that were leaving the company for various reasons. In the blue, which is 2020, you'll see that, like I mentioned before, March 2020, when the shutdown occurred, we had very little people leave the company. In fact, 0 operators left during the early stages of the shutdown. And that trend continued throughout the summer. Had a little bit of a spike in September of that year, and then it went back down and pretty much maintained or was steady through most of 2020. But as we got into 2021, which is the orange line, you see that it kind of leveled off a little bit early part of the year, dropped some, but then it slowly started going up to where we were in August, September, and late 2021. That trend started to go up. And then when you look at 2022, the gray line, you definitely start to see some spikes there. We really were hit hard in March of this year. We lost around 13 operators, and there are various reasons, and I'll go into that in a little bit later as far as what some of those reasons are. And then we took another spike, unfortunately, this past month in August, where we had 11 operators leave for various reasons just a month ago. This next slide shows our turnover ratio, and wanted to give you kind of a perspective on what we do as far as tracking the number of operators who leave and why and so forth. So in fiscal year 2020, and our fiscal year is from July 1 through June 30th, we had a relatively low number. And in the industry, if you have less than double digits in terms of turnover ratio, you're doing pretty good. But remember, that was part of the pandemic during that period. So, we had, a little under 5% of our workforce leave and come during that period. And you see a pretty much even split almost between people who left voluntarily and those that left involuntarily. Hate to use the word termination, but really that's what that equates to. What you see here for the fiscal year 2021, you start to see a spike in that, and it almost really doubled that past fiscal year. And you see that the folks that left voluntarily went up over 6%, and then involuntarily 4.24%. And then unfortunately, that trend has continued up until this current fiscal year, which ended June 30th, where you have almost a little under 18% of our workforce total, which came and left during that period. So you can see how it's incrementally going up. And then voluntarily, people who left on their own, you see that number continue to climb, but at least the ones that were let go remain pretty steady, right around that 4% mark. So some of the reasons, like I mentioned earlier, as to why people may be leaving, I know you've probably read and heard various articles that are out there, and particularly in transit, where we've had those challenges, obviously, the work-life balance. And what I mean by that is, we still have a lot of people that are coming to the organization, whether it's for, childcare reasons or for whatever reason, maintain that work-life balance to make sure that they are the quality of work that we're providing for them in terms of the run structure is something that we continue to work on, so that people will want to continue to work here during the period. For whatever reasons, they may not feel comfortable continue to work here if their schedules change so much, because with our system, it's seniority based, and we go through different schedule changes at least three times a year. And those schedule changes, you may have people that may work nights, weekends, because our service starts on the street roughly about 4:30 in the morning, and the last bus pulls in about 3 a.m. And we operate 7 days a week. So you have people that are coming into work at various times of the day, nights, weekends, and newer operators especially are the ones that work some of those weekends and night work, which can be a challenge to you physically if it's something you're not used to. And then there's some other reasons too. Pay, obviously, we're competing with different other companies throughout the area, whether it's school bus, trucking industry, and so forth. So we're looking at ways in which we have to work on from a pay standpoint. And we have some incentive programs and things I'll talk about here in a minute that we're put in place to address that. And the stressors of the job. I know you've probably heard about different assaults and other issues that have occurred on our buses over the last few years. We're working with our operators to make sure that we give them the tools to address those issues with de-escalation techniques and things of that nature. But it still is a challenge. And for some folks, it may be beyond what they're able to do. So as Mike mentioned earlier, some of the things we are doing is advertising and recruitment. We had a very good advertising campaign that started last year, August of last year, and it ended this past June. We're going to pick that back up here shortly. And we're also going to incorporate with some of the streaming services as well. So it won't just be the traditional television ads. We're also looking at some streaming opportunities as well. And our focus this time will be mainly on operators. Last year we did operators and mechanics, but a lot of our mechanic, vacancies have been filled. In fact, our body shop is at full staff, and we only have a few positions open in the as far as technicians go. So those ads worked well for the mechanic side to where we're not even going to advertise this go around with our media ads. But operators, we're still challenged with that. We've had a steady stream of people to come through. So we are getting some good candidates to come through the system. We've had 8 classes so far this year. We're working on our 9th class. The last 2 years, we were only able to get 6 classes in. So with the ads that we've done, at least we're getting more people in the door. And something we implemented this past year, August of last year, was a sign-on bonus. New operators coming in above what their starting wage is, they were getting an additional $75 a week or $150 per pay period for the first 6 months that they're here. Also, for those eligible new hires, a $3,000 sign-on bonus, which they'll receive as well as they go through their training and stay on for that period of a year. So that has helped us bring in more people. So we've had some positive results from that, based on the signing bonus, advertising, and so forth to bring new people in. And another thing we did incorporated that started last December was we changed our hiring criteria when it comes to having a CDL. Prior to that, most new operators that came in, you had to have at least a learner's permit. And what I mean by that is you had to have taken the test with the DMV to be able to get a learner's permit with the passenger endorsement as you work towards your actual CDL. We do have third-party testing on site. We've been doing that for several years, in which once people come in, we train them and work with them with the skill training and so forth to actually get their CDL. So we had been doing that, but actually what we were able to do and partner with the DMV, so we want to thank DRPT, Department of Motor Vehicles and so forth, to help with us do our actual testing on site. So we set up a computer room where our new candidates come in and they actually take the online test to get their learner's permit, same as what they did if they were to go to the DMV. So we were able to help them get their initial permit, and then once they start training, work towards getting their CDL as well. So that helped us in getting new candidates in the door. And this chart here kind of shows you the dividends of that. So you look at the last few years, the training numbers, coincidentally for 2020 and 2021, we had the same number of operators start training. And both of those years, we had 6 classes total. And you see the throughput, which is the graduation rate, number of people who actually graduate and go through our system, stayed in the 80s throughout last year and the last 2 years. And then those that graduated and are still with us after graduation. And this in 2022 is through May. As I mentioned earlier, we still have 19 operators that are with us from May on through our current class that started last month. But you see that last line, which is a bit concerning. You see that less than half of the operators that finished training that graduated are still with us. And we've noticed that trend increase over the last year or so, where people that we hired aren't staying with us for very long. And there's some reasons that may be attributed to that. Are they just coming to us to acquire the CDL and then moving on somewhere else? going back to that quality of life and things of that nature that I talked about earlier, and the challenges of starting the job. Those are the things that we're continuing to look at, so that we can look at ways in which we can keep good quality people after graduation. So what are we doing in the meantime as we try to build our workforce back to those levels that we need to grow the service? Unfortunately, we had to reduce some service back in December of last year because the number of operators just wasn't supporting our current service levels. And as a result, we reduced our numbers of service to some degree. But to offset that, we started a pilot program back in December of last year, in which we brought in a couple of providers, Uber and Userve, along with our own operators that were available as well, to help offset those late night, early morning trips that were reduced back in December and are still reduced up to today. So we have those operators and companies through the hours of 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. They can call into us, or Uber has an app in which you can go onto their app and use the GRTC special voucher to go on, and actually you can get a trip from bus stop to bus stop. It's not from door to door, but it is from bus stop to bus stop, so that those people who were displaced trying to get home or trying to get to work and so forth, that their service was discontinued back in December, we're able to offset that. We've had a steady group of about 40, 50 trips or so each month where customers are utilizing that service. And what we're doing also, and I touched on it earlier, we have to look at our current labor workforce. Now, we are with coordination with ATU, so there is a labor workforce with our union. Now, we're not able to do any type of pay increases without negotiating with the union. But one thing we are able to do with our current workforce is give them incentive bonuses. So starting late July of this year, and it's going to last through the current fiscal year, is we put in an incentive program for operators who come to work. So if you come to work, just showing up and doing your job, you'll get an additional $2 an hour just for coming in the door. I mean, I wish that a lot of folks, if you have a job and you have an incentive that you just come to work and you get extra pay just for showing up, I wish we all had that, but we extended it to our labor workforce for our current employees to incentivize them to come to work. And then also for those people who work overtime, they get time and a half on top of that, which is an extra $1 an hour on top of that. And we want to incentivize those people who have to work nights and weekends. I touched on it earlier. It may be some challenges for some people to work nights and weekends. So we added extra money on that as well for those people who have to work runs that are after 6 p.m. And then on weekends, we give them extra pay as well. So those are some of the things we're looking at to try to retain people and then incentivize folks to come to work as well. But down the road, hopefully, as we build our workforce up, because right now, like I said, we're at 227 full-time operators. We hope to build up to where we get closer to 300. That's our target number, our goal number for all the expansion that we've been talking about, that our development group has been working on with the local jurisdictions, to where you heard those testimonies earlier, people that want to get out to some of the surrounding areas, whether it's up Route 1 to what formerly was Virginia Center Commons, or folks trying to get down to Midlothian Turnpike, as you just talked about earlier. And as we increase frequency of service as well. But some of the things we're looking at is, one is microtransit, those, to help with those first mile, last mile scenarios, where people that are on some of the outlying areas that we can either set up with some of our own operators or a third party to come in and help with some of those services around that. And I mentioned just a moment ago about increasing headways. The gentleman mentioned about the Fulton area to get more service. That is a prime example of that, add more headways to service like that, and also on the weekends. And I touched on expanding in the surrounding areas, not just for Henrico and Chesterfield, but also New Kent, Hanover, and Powhatan. So those are some of the areas down the road in the next year or so that we hope to expand. But in order to do that, we have to get those operators numbers up. So with those plans in place and those things that we're doing, hopefully we will achieve that. Oops, I cut off there, but if you want to get a hold of Mike and me, you can call Mike 474-9355. My number is 9342. But I can also make sure you get the link for us as well to contact us via email for any questions, concerns, and things of that nature that we can share with you all. And I do want to say this, and then I'll close. We're also looking at ways in which we can partner with our workforce. I mentioned earlier that a key component of that is with our union, our labor workforce. We had drivers meetings just yesterday. We met throughout the day at several sessions. And some of the things that we kept talking to them over and over and getting their feedback is their input. What I have seen through different webinars and talking with some of my peers as far as best practices for our industry in particular is what we can do to keep people. And that's looking at partnerships with our labor workforce. So we're starting a series of meetings in which we're going to talk with them specifically about some things that are going on within the organization. So yesterday, what we did was, we had all of the departments kind of go through and talk about some of the projects and things that are going on within the organization, so that they will hear it firsthand from the different groups within the company. Also, to give them an opportunity to express issues, concerns, suggestions, and so forth. And we have a different committees that we have members of the workforce on to talk through different issues as well. A safety and health committee is an example. A run bid committee, that's another one that looks specifically at the run structure that the operators work each 3 or 4 months to get their input. And also we're looking at partnering with the union to do perhaps mentorships and apprenticeship programs. There's some good things going on in certain areas of the country that we can tap into, and hopefully that will work towards our retention and build up our workforce as well. So one of those key things I think has to be partnering with our workforce, getting the feedback from them, because those are the people that drive and do the service every day. They're out there touching and with the customer base. They see what's going on more than anybody. So who else to help us to get where we need to go than to utilize the labor force to do that. So that's all I have. And like I said, I want to thank you all for the time and opportunity just to speak to you all today to kind of give you a perspective of what GRTC is doing, what we would like to do, and we need your help too. So anybody that wants to come and be a bus operator, by all means, send them our way. They don't even have to have a CDL. We'll train them. We'll give them the tools to do the job effectively. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Faith. And for any questions or any feedback, comments at this time, I appreciate it.
All right, well, thank you so much, Tim and Mike. That was a very thorough presentation and very transparent. So I thank you so much for giving us that data and information. I had a person send us a question through our inbox a few days ago. This is from Brian. He says, back when they cut the frequency of the 5 line, maybe a year ago, they reduced it from 15 minutes to every 30 minutes. But they said that they, as soon as they hired more bus operators, they make it more frequent again. Do you know if and when that might happen? I saw these route frequency updates, got excited, but it sounds like the 5 is still stuck at 30 minutes. And so I just wanted to know if you had any feedback for that gentleman, Brian.
Well, I appreciate Brian's comments and questions. Yes, as soon as we do get that labor workforce built back up, and let me give you just a little perspective. As I mentioned earlier, we're at 227 full-time operators. With our current run structure, we probably should be closer to 252 operators, which means right now we're 25 short. So what we have to do, and what I explained to the operators yesterday, is and I'll explain it to you all, we have to start incrementally. So first, we got to get that 25 number up to where we're at least able to maintain a service level that we're putting service on the street. Every route is covered every day, minimizing the amount of people we have to use for overtime and so forth. So once we build that up to where we're pretty steady along that line, then we can look at how we can increase service on top of that. So sometime next year, hopefully, we're getting into the fall now. We're still having classes. We got a class starting on October the 11th. So we're going to probably have about maybe 10, 11 classes this year, which is the most we've had in any given year since I've been here. And we're going to continue to carry that into 2022. So if we can keep the numbers down as far as people that are leaving, then yes, the frequency of that service should go up, hopefully by next spring or fall. So that's our goal. That's what I'm sticking to. And hopefully as we continue to move forward and bring those operator numbers up, that's what we'll be working towards.
Okay, and there is a question in regards to the expansion. Would Goochland be a part of the Henrico area expansion?
In fact, I believe Sheltering Arms, which is right there at the Goochland line, Goochland and Henrico, adjacent to Short Pump. So we'll be touching Goochland at least in the short term. I don't know as far as going beyond that, but right now we do have plans to at least get to that Sheltering Arms facility, here shortly.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. That was one of the Sheltering Arms is one of our partners, and they mentioned that a lot of service workers are walking a mile up and down that stretch from that last stop. So that's good news to hear. Do we have a time frame when that may be?
I'm not quite sure. I know we were talking about that a little bit yesterday. That may come up in the spring, but we'll update you and let you sure when we're moving forward with that.
All right. And have you noticed any impact from the pay bonuses, especially from newer operators?
Well, I can tell you that since last August, we have had a steady stream of about class sizes of about 6 to 8, some even double digits. And we've had classes, like I said, once every month. The last 2 years before that, we were having classes every 2 months, 6 classes a year. So we were on pace up until this month where we had a class every month. So yes, we definitely see some positive dividends where the sign-on bonus has worked and we have had more people. What we noticed that with the incentive bonus for the retention side, that's still to be determined because it really only started out about a month ago. So we'll see over the next few months how that is going to pay dividends for us.
Great. Doug says, what can advocates do to help promote operator retention rates? Make sure GRTC is able to increase pay to be more competitive with other industries. How can we help boost that?
Well, I can tell you, talking with the operators and being with them day to day, some of the concerns and challenges that they have, when it comes to those issues, situations that come up from time to time, where people are on the bus and doing things that are, I guess, counter to the rules of riding. I'm putting it as nicely as I can. And when we have to get third parties involved, the police and things of that nature, those are things that we can really from the community. I know there have been other areas and we've done it as well. And we talked about doing more of that, those campaigns about being nice, ride the bus and things of that nature. So those are the things that we can really get help from you all. As far as any pay increases go, we'd have, like I said earlier, we'd have to negotiate that with the union. Just so happens our labor agreement expires September 30th of next year. So there will be some time coming up over the next few months, probably sometime next year that we'll be talking with the union, talking about that as well. Our new CEO, we just started that process of bringing in, of advertising and getting the new CEO in. So I'm sure we'll want to wait until that person comes in which we can get input from the individual as far as moving forward with that. But I'm sure that person will be in long before, we have to get back to the negotiating table.
Great. I just wanted to just add again about being kind. I know our nation has suffered tremendously on how we treat each other, especially service workers. And I believe our generation has shifted, because to be a bus operator was so respectable, especially in the African American community. And I think we have shifted that, and bus operators don't get the respect they deserve. So I believe as advocates, it is our job to make sure that we're setting a temperature or a culture of respect to operators, because they run our city. And so Suzanne has two questions. I'm sorry. Actually, there's one before that. Are the operators trained in trauma response strategies when dealing with the community?
Well, we do have annual training. In fact, every year we go through sensitivity training, ways in which operators can deal with various situations to try to de-escalate, what we call de-escalation techniques that we have shared with them. So every operator has to go through that on an annual basis. We also have, the last several safety meetings that we've had representatives from the Richmond Police Department come in and share with us some of the challenges that they've had on the law enforcement side, and some techniques that they have done to share with our operators on how to deal with certain situations and so forth. Not that they're going to by no means, exercise any authority in terms of what the police do, but at least some of those techniques, what our safety director likes to call verbal judo, to try to talk through issues and de-escalate things instead of trying to escalate them and so forth. And there are times in which the operators are instructed that when all else fails, you just call in and get help. Stop the bus and get assistance, and we'll have somebody come out with you, either a supervisor or in some cases law enforcement.
So we have two questions. What do you think will happen to the free fare next fiscal year? And if you have to begin to charge fares, do you expect drivers' conditions to improve? Possibly because they would maybe need to enforce them.
Yeah, and we've had conversations about that. I currently is through fiscal year 2023, which will end June 30th. We're going through a study now to look at the options as far as continuing with free fares beyond this fiscal year. So that study, I think we're going to take place over the next couple of months. I think it'll be finished up around November. So once we do that, then we'll present information to our board of directors and continue to work with our neighboring jurisdictions as well, City of Richmond, Henrico, Chesterfield County, to come up with the best solution going forward. So yes, over the next few months, we will be making those decisions as far as how to move forward. So if by chance fares are reinstituted, we're going to have to put the infrastructure back in place. Some of our buses, have to get fare boxes updated and reinstalled. Some of our operators, and I'll tell you this, all of our operators that have been hired since 2020 have no fare media training. So they're going to have to be trained. We have to bring all the operators back in and refresh and retrain them. And then if we do institute fares, what fare media are we going to use? The system that we used before or some other form of it. So those are the things we're going to have to look at. And then the challenges of fare enforcement. We had on the Pulse fare enforcement officers, operators, on the local fixed route service. What are they going to have to do to mitigate against any fare issues and so forth? We don't want to be the fare police necessarily and put that responsibility on them, but to manage through that and to make sure that we address those issues accordingly.
So has there been, this comes from Barry, has there been any discussion about incorporating more work-life balance activities for retention, work sports, leagues? I guess, what are you guys doing to mitigate that, and introducing operators to a neighborhood with community outings, ways to build communities, more fellowship and engagement? Any thoughts on that?
That's a good idea. I can tell you what we're doing now. One of the things we've done for quite a while is, we have a program here through our HR department. If you go to the gym, I think it's 8 times a month, we give out gift cards and reward folks for doing those things before the pandemic. And maybe now that things are kind of leveling off, we'll get back to it. You know, we bring people in from time to time. You know, we used to do yoga classes on site and other type of activities. We're talking about doing some outings, company-wide outing to King's Dominion that's coming up next month. We do our rodeo in-house as well for preparation for the state rodeo. So those are some fun activities we hope to bring back to get our family atmosphere back to where people feel good about not only the company, but that, you know, we're not just, you know, you're not just a number, but you're also a person. And we want to make sure we bring some of those things back as well.
Great.
But I like those ideas as far as, you know, a softball team and some other activities to involve the other communities, you know, the other businesses within the community as well. So I'll definitely take that back to some of the folks and see what we can add on to that list.
Great. And Kimberly says, not sure if this was covered, but are there any plans to extend service into Chesterfield on Iron Bridge Road?
Haven't heard that as much. You know, Adrian Torres, who heads our development team, I'll touch base with her to see if there's any discussions along those lines. You know, I know, you know, we expanded, you know, Route 1, you know, last year, in fact, just prior to the pandemic, you know, and then we're also looking at Midlothian Turnpike as well. You just talked about that earlier. So as far as any other areas, you know, whether it's Courthouse Road or Iron Bridge or to the government center, I'm sure those are some things that may have had some preliminary discussions, but definitely I'll make sure that that Ms. Torres and her team at least have it on their radar.
Great. Well, if we don't have any other questions, let's see. Oh, here we know. So not sure if this, we just got a flood of questions that just popped in. Give me a second. What are the plans for increasing vital infrastructure coverage, benches and shelters?
Well, that is not my purview.
I can touch on that.
That specializes in that, but yeah, sure, Mike, take it.
Sure. So we are embarking on a plan to upgrade bus stops throughout the Richmond area beginning next summer. It's kind of a three-tiered plan. It depends on how much grant money we get, but the goal is to install either a bench or a shelter at 50% of our stops within the next 5 years. We'll be applying to various federal, state, and local grants to get that money. Our baseline attainable goal would be $11 million. So that would get us to 50% of the stops being upgraded. If we raise a little bit more money, the goal gets more ambitious. So it would be 75% of the stops. And then we have a top tier goal as well. So lots of exciting stuff coming up. You should start to see some things happening at stops next summer.
Great. Well, have you considered, this comes from Anjali, women drivers and how the amenities needed or required may be different than what men need? So maybe a driver's lounge, but specifically nursing mothers, having split shifts or any accommodations. Have that been thought of?
No, that's a you know, good idea, a good suggestion. You know, I can tell you that the way our runs are structured, you know, they are based on seniority. So for those nursing mothers or people who may have a particular need, childcare or what have you, it is based on what work would be available at the time that they pick their turn comes up to pick the run. But as we continue to build and get more operators, then we'll be able to create more runs that will be able to then you know, have different options so that some folks who do have those special needs or requests are able to be accommodated. But that's something that we still would have to talk with our labor union and try to work through some of that as well.
And Tim, can I just say that was brought to our attention? We were working with some of our grantees, And they kind of asked for advice on that, but it's actually been brought up about a couple of times this last year that they have women that are willing to, but we know that the number one problem across any of the fields, the workforce, is childcare or things like that. And so that was something that they were looking at, revamping their amenities and looking at for their smaller routes or microtransit, they could do some sort of split shifts or something like that. So that's why I brought that up. And has that been considered?
And that's a good point, because, you know, with the microtransit study that we're doing, you know, one of the options is to utilize our internal workforce to operate that service. So yes, that could be something that could work right along, you know, those lines. So thank you.
Thank you, Anjali, for that comment. Well, thank you everyone for participating today and being with us. I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And also, we have a lot of advocates on this call. This is a call for us to strategize in ways that we can support bus operators. And give me one moment to pin myself. There you go. All right, so one of the things we definitely need to do is figure out ways we can support operators in this work, whether that's any incentive programs through area businesses in the region, to increase them staying on with GRTC, because without operators, as you can imagine, there is no expansion, but also frequency is at risk. And so I just wanted to say thank you again to Tim and Mike for your wonderful presentation and answering all of our questions today. And so with this, I would say take action again, support transit by riding the bus. So, you know, help the environment by reducing your greenhouse gas, but support the bus by riding the bus. Also, another way that you can help is adopt a stop. We have the Better Bus Stop program. So you yourself or someone you know can advocate on behalf of installing more shelters and benches in your region to your state and city local leaders. Also, too, we have a Adopt a Stop program where you can adopt a stop. And then also share your story. And so we're always looking for stories and ways for people to share their experiences using public transportation. And then lastly, donate. Your support enables RVA Rapid Transit to produce educational content such as this and to do the work we do. So without that local support, we can't do this work. And so we need you to help us with those donations. So thank you so much again. Thank you to GRTC for partnering with us on this work. They are always welcome to participate in our Transit Talk and share information with us. So with that, we will see you next time for our next Transit Talk. Be looking out for our next invite. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a good one. Bye-bye.